Welcome to Director's Notes.
Thank you for
Thank
having us.
you.
We're excited to be here.
Good. Well, this is the second time we've spoken to you because we ran an interview with you with the short back in South by Southwest. So, I mean, let's open with that. How did you develop this amazing feature from what was already a stunning short?
Oh, thank you for the words, for the adjectives. Well, I think what was often the challenge in expanding a short into a feature, is that when you feel like something has worked and you've got something that you feel passionately about and is kind of doing what it needs to do, you go, okay, how do we stretch this? How do we build out in front? Do we build out at the end? And I think that's often quite dangerous because I think we both believe that if a film, if a story of any kind of sort of storytelling really works, it's usually because it is the correct length for the story that it is. And we knew we wanted to make a feature before we made the short. We originally pitched it as a feature without a firm plot kind of in place, but we knew what we were exploring. We knew the genre, we knew the references, we sort of knew where we wanted to go. And the short was kind of a proof of that concept.
Yeah.
So when we came to writing the feature, we looked at the short and we decided the thing that was most interesting to us within the short was the relationship between those two characters who are both, I guess, confronting, struggling with their relationship to their sexuality, to their masculinity, to gender. We thought that was a really kind of potent dynamic, potent chemistry. And so we took them and put them in a way, although we sort of also threw the characters out and reconstructed them from the ground up. Archetypally, they were what we sort of transported from the short into the feature, and we then built everything around that, and so everything else kind of changed. So we really went back to
the drawing board.
We sort of were like, nothing is sacred, everything goes out the window, begin again.
I think you can tell because you often see proof of concept shorts that then maybe it's one scene that's extended into the feature. And so I watched the short before, so then I watched the feature, and then I went back and watched the short again, which was a really interesting way of doing it. And you can see how you've developed that world, but it's almost like you've taken it and you put it on crack,
I like that.
There you go, you can quote me on that. So, I mean, one of the things in the short as well, and the film obviously centers around the two protagonists and their performances. As they were so strong and amazing, and I'm sure you know what I'm going to say, why did you recast?
Who wants to take you? So we did go back to Papa and Harris because that was part of what it was to make the short. I think having written the new script, I think it was agreed and we all realized that the characters were very different, although we took the same, we took inspiration from that character dynamic. And I think the short, at least to us, was so great because was so great for us, and because Papa and Harris was so well cast in the short, and they really owned those characters in the short. And I think you will agree that in the feature, the two characters are recognizable but actually quite different.
Which was sort of the danger point, I think, because like I said, when we first started writing, we loved working with Papa and Harris and had like a really good time with them. And I think we sort of assumed that, we would build out, but it was that sort of dangerous point where, as you said, some stuff, in some ways, there's a lot of things in the feature that are recognizable from the short. The tone, the style, the characters feel like, in a way, there's a link between them archetypally, but they also had to operate so differently, and they had to be different characters. As you said, they're much louder, messier, noisier characters in the feature. And I think there was a danger for us creatively and probably everyone involved if you sort of go again with the same people, but go, these are sort of kind of the same characters, but they're also
change it a
different.
little bit.
How do we all not get stuck on what we created before? How do we, like, we knew we sort of needed to come in as if it's a new project.
I mean,
and
everything is writing. You know, casting is writing as well. So, you know, the thought that when you ask us, you know, how do we develop the short to the feature, we, you know, people talk about writing, but really it's about casting, it's about designing, everything of that, you know, has to be thrown out and started all over again.
And so when Nathan and George came in, and we particularly talked a lot when we were creating the characters with them as well about the idea of drag, not just Jules as a drag queen, but also Preston as a drag king, and how you build a sort of how they build the various drags that they wear in the film. And it was, I think, kind of necessary. Definitely, I think, you know, made the process a lot simpler to begin from scratch and go, who are these people? They're not like, there's everything that came before is out the window. These are new people. Where do we start and how do we build them?
Yeah, and it does they are, like you said, they're very relatable, but they're entirely different, which is beautiful to see. So you mentioned the drag, and it's obviously so integral to the film. It's the disguise, it's the masks, it's everything. How did you get that authenticity with the character of Aphrodite and with that club, and what's research did you put in for that?
Oh, we had a drag consultant.
We had a drag consultant. We're quite big drag fans.
Yes,
like, been to the live shows.
Yes.
Watched RuPaul for many seasons, but I've been, you know, when they like been shows in London and to the venues and did, you know, had a sort of personal relationship to it. And then we had
John Bus
and Andrew, John Bus Blonde was our drag consultant, and he came in and worked with us and worked with Nathan.
He's what, third runner up on season three.
Was it season 3 or season 4? Season 3.
Yeah.
Anyway,
he was fantastic.
Season 4 actually. Anyway,
I
can't remember which season it was, but
it's running into each other.
But he was brilliant, and he was on set with us when we were filming he was watching on the monitor, checking the makeup, he played a big role in kind of in the authenticity of it from a kind of inside out perspective.
Yeah, that definitely shines through, because I've also watched a lot of RuPaul's Drag Race, and I think, you know, Aphrodite, you know, her character was just amazing. When she came on, it just embodied everything. And so it's always, I've never heard of a drag coordinator, whatever, but that makes total sense.
Good job. That's his help. Maybe that's now John Busney.
Yeah.
I mean, we definitely we wanted Aphrodite to represent a very kind of modern form of drag, didn't we? And that was,
it's kind of like, you know, Michael Caine in Miss Congeniality.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I can see that. So talking about sort of different people on set, and this is something that I'm really into exploring at the moment. You had an intimacy coordinator for those sex scenes, because obviously they are so integral with the power struggle and the dynamics. So tell us about working. What was it, Robbie Taylor Hunt?
Yeah, our hero. We love him. You just saw him the other night again, actually. I mean, working with an intimacy coordinator on this was so important and so essential for us, because what the film asks of Nathan and George as actors on the kind of intimacy front is intense. It's full on. It's very exposing. And it's also, as you said, integral to the storytelling, to their power dynamic, to, you know, we like to think, and in the edit, we were really on this, that there was nothing gratuitous in the film in the form of sex. We're not like hanging on shots for ages. Just it's not titillating. It really is the plot of the film. Nathan, Jules is always enacting some kind of action. Their relationship is always moving forward through the sex. And so we knew we had to get it right to be able to tell the story correctly, and that it sort of needed to go there. And having an intimacy coordinator, and Robbie specializes in queer intimacy as well, which is great. But having an intimacy coordinator, one, puts a really important barrier between you and the actors in that regard, so that you are able to talk to the intimacy coordinator. From our side, we're able to be completely honest with him about what we need from the scene, what we would like to see, without us feeling embarrassed to ask them and the actors. And then on the other end of that, Robbie gets to choreograph that with them creatively, and they are free to say no to whatever without feeling any kind of pressure from us, because we're not there. We will never know what happened in that room, what didn't work, what did work, any of that stuff. And so it just makes everything more comfortable. I think, Robbie works with the actors to make sure that they have certain rituals to go in and out of the, almost kind of bonding them, for that they have this, rituals to perform before they go into the sex scenes, to be comfortable with each other, to check in with each other. And then on the other front, much like a fight coordinator, intimacy coordination is also a creative job. Like, Robbie specializes in telling a story through sex and intimacy. And so actually he throws in a lot of ideas about how this is choreographed, what the moments are, what does this character do to this character in a moment, and what does that mean, and what does that show us. He's such an expert in thinking about how, what individual moments of intimacy mean, and how you tell a story through them, that it really adds a lot.
Yeah,
I think it's an important shift in the way a set is structured in terms of power structure. We're shifting away from, whatever the director says is right, and you have to do whatever they say, and we're shifting to a place where there's a more democratic and more safer, more professional, really. The word is professional, where, because you're asking actors to do very intimate, inward, raw, exposing stuff.
Yeah.
And whatever structures you can put in to make them feel safe and not feel exploited is important and creative. It is not just a political move, but a creative move as well.
Yeah, and it's one of those things as well. Again, it comes through the screen. When, I think back to films that I've been discussing this with people recently that I would have watched back in the day, and you see those sex scenes, and now looking at them again, you look at them, you're like, they're not that powerful, right? Because there's a sense of awkwardness or a sense of inhibition. But I think films that have these intimacy coordinators, I think you can really tell. So yeah, well done for that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I never want to do it without one, really. Honestly, I think it, as I said, I think it improves everything, both the professionalism, as you said, the on-set life and the job, and also actually the scenes themselves, in terms of creativity and storytelling, and what's in, there's so much thought that has gone in from Robbie into those sex scenes and into individual moments within them.
Yeah. So I wanted to talk about sort of a bit of the camera work. In the short, you've got a lot of handheld shots, we're really in there. And you've brought that through, obviously, to the feature, and because it's all from Jules's perspective. So yeah, talk to us about your camera work and that language, why that was important.
Because part of the thriller build of the film is very much about withholding information, about only seeing the world when the protagonist sees it, always being in his head, is always subjective, and that really lands quite heavily on the camera work. And we just want to shout out to our DOP.
Well, and the edit as well, actually.
And
in terms of then choosing,
choosing the images to present to the spectator. So, shout out to our DOP, James Rhodes, who is an amazing DOP, and he operated the camera himself, so his handheld is just beautiful and sensitive.
Apart from a week where he had COVID, and he brought an operator in, and he was in a tent, and like sealed off tent with a thing, and he would speak through the radio with the operator.
That's amazing.
Yeah, that was nuts.
Yeah, it was nuts. But you can tell the difference when he's operating and when he's not.
Okay.
You could feel like it was in that moment that we thought, oh, we and James have gotten into a sync where we can recognize each other's work, which is a really lovely feeling. And as well for Selena MacArthur, our beautiful, wonderful editor, who did not allow us to leave any fat in the film.
But I think so in terms of the cinematography, the handheldness was important, as you said, as a kind of I mean, we had really specific references going into this in terms of genre, in terms of films that inspired us. Good Time was a big one for us, which is there's a lot of kind of handheld cinematography within. It's a very dynamic film. We wanted Femme to feel like it's always moving. It never really stops, so it's always in motion, so it carries you along. And alongside that, James lensed Jules differently to how he lensed kind of the rest of the characters. You always feel closer to Jules. You always feel more, and particularly there's a difference between the way we shoot Jules and the way we shoot Preston for most of the film. So that you always feel like you're closer to Jules, and Preston is a little bit more objective further away. And then as the film moves on, there is a point where James sort of shifts the lens, subtly moves Preston slightly closer as we start to get to know him more, as he gains subjectivity within the story. The camera work around him changes so that we sort of feel closer to him as well.
And then he started using the Jules lenses on Preston.
On Preston.
Yeah.
And there's another switch that goes on as well in sort of like the mirror shots. So at the beginning, it's all very much in terms of the power. It's all Preston's. He's got everything. He's the dominant one. But then we see a shift. Which is amazing as well. So was that sort of changing the lens and swapping them around?
Well, it's a composition as well. Like, we're really proud of, you mentioned mirror shots. There are quite a few mirror compositions that people might see or might not see. We weren't too ostentatious with them, but one that we were really proud of is when Jules first comes out of the flat, and then Preston is pressing him against the wall, and then later on in the film, out at the club, it's flipped, and then Jules is pressing Preston against the wall.
And James even in terms of sort of how he kind of angles on them, it always amazes me how Jules feels so much bigger in that second scene. Like, actually, physically, his stature is like it's like Nathan's grown, and Preston has shrunk, and it's like subtle. It's not, he's not doing anything extreme, but you just go, whoa. You physically feel different in this moment, even though they obviously the same actors shot, probably a week apart.
In fact, Nathan is slightly taller than George.
Yeah, he is. I mean, but
in the first part of the film, you always feel like George is like enormous.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah. Yeah, he did. I think James did amazing, because obviously he, as you said, he's such a talented operator. He really knows how to dance with the actors. Like, he's there, but he's never in their way, but he's always kind of moving. Like, it's such a relationship that he's moving with them to find the performance, to find those moments with them without ever sort of getting in the way. And you watch him do it, and it's such a skill.
In fact, in terms of editing, I remember taking out a shot where it's a 2-shot, and because it's quite a flat shot, we can see the real relative sizes of the two actors. So we took it out. So in the locker room, so that we always feel that Nathan is slightly smaller, if not physically, then psychically.
Yeah. So, I mean, talking about the edit, how was that process? How did you come? Like, was the tone planned? That dark sort of, it's dark, but it's neon. There's so much there. Was that all built in the edit?
I mean, James, the DOP, after the first week of shooting, came to visit Selena in the edit room. So I mean, that conversation between DOP and editor began from the start.
Amazing.
You know, so there was always feedback, you know, like maybe Selena going like, okay, you know what, we need this. We if you're gonna try to do this, we need this. And then James going like, oh, you're doing that with the this sequence of shots. Okay, so I know it informs how I go forward. So that was a really nice loop that they established between the two of them.
Yeah, she was assembling as we were shooting, so we'd have a weekly kind of phone with her to say like, what are you missing? What are you enjoying? What's really working for this? I mean, I think in terms of the colors and stuff, a lot of that was built into, I mean, obviously
on set,
was built on set,
yeah,
like, with lighting, and we had a kind of pre-grade, like Joseph, who's our colorist, put, you know, I don't actually know the technical term, but basically sort of pre-graded it into the camera, right? So what we were seeing was actually like was a close approximation of what we went, and then obviously it goes back to Joseph and he does the final work on it in terms of the coloring. And then in terms of edit, I think a lot of it, you know, the edit, a lot of it is about bringing that tension, and so much of that is about rhythm and what we see and what we don't see. So obviously we have so many options of what we could be looking at any moment. And with Selena, we really, really just worked hard to craft that subjective point of view, like to feel like we're in Jules's head. We're seeing what we see from his perspective, at what point, in what order, for how long, what the rhythm of it is, you know, taking, as we said, that kind of handheld, like the dynamism of the cinematography, and finding a flow through that in the edit, so that we never feel like we're sort of stopping unless we really feel like here's a moment to take a breath. And I think it's so kind of, I mean, Selena, even in the first assembly, I think what was great for her, I think, you know, it's a film that I think what was on the script is sort of what we made, which isn't always the case. And so she came in and she was like, I think I have found this film even in the first assembly. And it was like, you're always terrified to watch the first assembly, because you generally you're just like, oh, it's a disaster. And then you work it and you hopefully realize that it's not. But I remember so pleasantly surprised after that first screening, being like, oh, okay,
I was worried actually.
It needs work, but like obviously because it's first assembly, but like actually I think it's in here.
I was worried actually, because people say that if it's a fit first assembly, it means it's gonna be a great film.
Yeah.
And then the first assembly was, oh, it's all right.
It's all right.
Oh, we're fucked.
So we just cried. Yeah, I mean, we had a lot of, Selena's a very fun person to edit with.
She has a bell.
Yeah.
Nice.
So what happened was that, you know, she'll edit. In fact, she'll be doing the stuff, and then we'll be sitting behind her, like back, you know, like, oh, what about this, whatever. And then she turned to us and said, you know what? When I'm ready for you to look at it, you can tell us. Then you can comment. So she brought in a bell. So, and the bell is like, whenever she's ready for us,
she goes bing, and we go,
and then we'll come and look.
So we just like chat. Love. She goes, and she goes bing, and then we go
like Pavlov's dog.
Yeah. But yeah. So yeah. I think the edit was a lot about crafting the thriller, the tension, the point of view, and it was just, we went through and experimented and tried things and took things out and
killing lots of babies.
Yeah.
It's always part of it, isn't it?
Yeah, lots of things that you tried on set and you were like, oh, maybe this will be cool, and you put it in, you're like, you know what, it just doesn't. It's good in isolation, and when you throw it in, it's throwing off the chemistry.
But I think, but it's also interesting that the film that we see and the one that was edited was the one that you planned, because often different endings can come out, different kind of feelings and sentiments. So I think that's obviously testament to your writing and your storytelling. That you knew what you wanted it to be.
Yeah, I think we did. We worked it hard. Like
we were quite rigorous with it.
Yeah, we knew we had a very clear vision of what we wanted it to be.
Again, everything's writing in it. Like we were editing in our heads, even in the writing of the script, and in the shooting of it as well. That we were editing in our heads, because every day would start with first AD coming to us. So, what do you want to cut today, or else we will make the day?
We never had enough time.
So it was always a very perforce rigorous process of what we need for the story. So we are always thinking of what is the leanest and most effective story, and what we need and what we don't need, and don't waste time shooting the things that we will eventually cut anyway.
Yeah, and I think that's important for the thriller side of it, which obviously you feel throughout. I mean, it was definitely one of those films where my heart was in my throat the whole way.
That's great.
Yeah, no, 100%. Because just, you know, right from that hideous, violent scene at the beginning, and I could feel that tension in that shot. And you're just like, oh no, and you're like, something's going to happen, and then it happens. But then it's not one of those moments that sometimes when there's the threat and then there's the conflict, then it's over. Not at all. It's just still there, and it still carries you through right until the end. It really does. Because even at the end, you leave it on a tense point because we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know what the repercussions are for this final moment. So
I think it's a testament to Selina's editing, really. You say the hideousness of the violence. If it's the build up, and then, you know, what it represents, that relationship that's quickly established between, you know, Jules and Preston. Because if you actually look at the bare bones of the images that we see, there's actually 1-2 seconds of physical violence. But what you feel is the hugeness of the spiritual and identity stripping that Jules experiences. So we're really glad that it came across so emotionally big. But
Nathan's performance.
Nathan's performance was so
upsetting,
raw and upsetting.
He just that again was one of those nights where we had like there was never enough time. He had to throw himself at it, and we actually had intimacy coordination there as well that night, as well as stunt coordinator. And he just it was horrible to witness. It's
harrowing. It was.
Yeah, even on set, but Nathan he threw himself into it, and I think that is the real horror of because there's not a whole there's a slam against the wall and there's a kick is actually the only physical violence that happens, and it's all emotional and psychological violence, but sort of played again, I think in so much of Nathan's performance, and then in sort of finding the moments in the edit that I think makes it so sort of
impactful,
sickening.
Yeah, and it's the juxtaposition as well, because we've got Aphrodite, who is powerful and owns everything, and you'd say the world has nothing against Aphrodite, and then suddenly it's Jules is vulnerable and he's weaker and he's being threatened, and I think that sudden shift, is one of, because the film as well, you've got so many different power dynamics in play.
I think it's something that I think people living in London can really empathize, because London is one of those strange places, isn't it, where one moment you feel perfectly safe, you are in your own world, your friends and the rules, you understand the rules, and then you turn a corner and suddenly you're in a completely different world. You think that you can carry your confidence and your invincibility into the next street, but sometimes, and I think that was something that we consciously tried to make. In a club, you are the queen of the world. You step out, you go one street down to the off license, and suddenly you're in someone else's territory.
And we tried to work that really hard with James in terms of cinematography and lighting. Obviously, that performance, Aphrodite's performance at the beginning is one of the actually, in terms of the shooting of it, the cinematography sort of stands out from the rest of the film in that it's shot so differently. It's the most composed part of the film. You've got this camera that spins around, goes in, and it's like a music video, which is not really the tone of the film in general, but it's that point where it's a fantasy. It's Jules is so powerful, and looks amazing, and then you get into that off license, and we're back in kind of handheld mode, and the light, the what you call the kind of fluorescent light of the strip lighting is so harsh on that makeup. It's suddenly it's almost like kind of melting it, and it suddenly feels so vulnerable and so exposing.
That was the music. The stage is the only time we had a camera on tracks.
Okay.
And everything else was
for that.
Just for that. So
that is
steady hand.
Yeah.
So it just feels Jules is in control.
Yeah.
And then suddenly out in London streets, it's handheld again, and you're not in control anymore. You're trying to be in control, but it's just not to be.
Yeah. God, now I want to watch it again now. I'm just thinking about everything.
Oh, thank you.
It was interesting you mentioning that the violence was so short, because in my mind, it's such a big moment.
It's like 30 seconds, isn't it? And there's like
the whole encounter is maybe 10, 15,
maybe not even 30. It's
10,
not even
15
30
seconds. But if you go like drill into it, is first Jules turns around to punch Preston, misses. Preston grabs Jules, throws him into the wall. Jules falls to the ground, and Preston kicks him. And then the rest of it is shouting, threatening him with a knife, saying take the clothes, and is the horribleness, evolves into Jules having to take off his clothes in front of all these laughing boys. And I think it made it even worse because like Preston's friends start to go, oh my God, this is horrible. And they start saying, leave it.
Yeah.
Stop it. So it wasn't a black and white kind of a group of villains against one victim. It was like an encounter gone wrong. There's a group of lads who think they're having fun, and then one of them kicks off, and then the rest of them go, oh my God, this is too much, and try to drag it off.
I wonder also actually if the jump also makes it feel longer than it actually is on the screen, because obviously you're right, like as in, so they're like, take the clothes off, you see something start to happen, and then we cut, and then suddenly he's naked on the ground. So there's part of you, I think, that imagines in the rest of that sequence, even though we don't show it on screen, that there's a huge jump from there's the knife, they're going around him, and then suddenly they're all gone, the street is completely quiet, and he's naked.
And then we held that big shot, that big white shot of him standing up naked, in silhouette.
But I like, we were often like, maybe that's the most upsetting shot actually, and like that's the most impactful shot, is the bit where he's left alone and you see him like scramble to his feet and he's all hunched over himself. It's actually like, maybe.
And was that all written in from the beginning?
Yeah.
You knew you needed that moment.
Well, I mean, we wouldn't have gotten it if it wasn't written in, because there was such a short amount of time. There's no
like, should we get an extra one?
We go somewhere and do a new setup and do this because we have time.
Every day was like, what's written in, and of those things that are written in,
what can you lose?
What can you lose? Because there's not enough time today.
What a lovely battle to have. So right, I've got one more question for you guys. BIFA. So obviously Femme the short was nominated 2 years ago, and now you're nominated again with the feature. How does that feel? It's like a wonderful full circle.
It definitely felt like a kind of homecoming moment, didn't it? BIFA was because BIFA was huge for us when we weren't like, because we were looking for our financing at that point, and we got the win, and it felt like right at just at the right moment, kind of eyes were on us, and I think actually I remember one of the producers, Sam Ritzenberg, saying that someone turned to him because we were trying to get the financing when we got the win and said like, oh, you've just made it that much more difficult for everyone to get, like, you can suddenly, like, it's just going to help
make it so difficult for everyone,
like it's in people have to like bid higher or whatever, like like it's become like I think it was someone from a company who was interested in financing it. They were like, oh, okay, now more people are going to be. So BIFA was important to us in getting the film made, and
this BIFA nomination for the feature is very important to us, to continue to make independent films. And
it's we're releasing on December 1st, so it feels like it's hard when you're an independent film, like you getting eyes on it, getting people to know about it, like getting people to go to the cinema to see it. So hopefully, it's released on December the 1st, and I hope these nominations have sort of brought some attention to it that maybe we wouldn't have had. So that's been, we were stunned and elated at the nominations.
I mean, it's incredibly well deserved.
Thank you. Thank you.
And are you going to continue working together? What's coming next?
Yeah, we're gonna, it's sort of, we're doing a mix, really. It's sort of project by project. Like Femme, me and Ping had been talking about working together for a long time. We were housemates, and we had a few different ideas for projects, but they'd always been like a bit more of one person or a bit more of the other. And Femme was the first one where it was like, oh, Femme was the first one that was really like, this is the thing that both of us want to make equal. Like, this feels like the two of us combined. And so I think we're sort of like staying open to that, finding that project again, that's sort of the duo project, and also having our own sort of pieces in the works that are more me or more him that we're doing solo.
Yeah, amazing. Well, thank you both so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It was a really nice chat.